I'm not going to lie to you. I like 1000% thought this was a myth, that these were profitable. I mean,
yeah, I thought they were making so much money off of college football.
Yes.
It's hard to imagine them not.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, my name's Ashton.
I'm Jonathan.
And along with our son Jack, we're the Black Forest family. In the first video on this series, I broke down the budget for the University of Missouri and the University of Freiburg to illustrate just how different the funding is for public state universities between the two countries.
And if you've been following along on the series, you know that Mizzou has 4 times the budget of the University of Freiburg.
But that leaves one big question. How do they spend it all?
For the final video in our series on American versus German university life, we're going to take a look at just that, but with a twist.
So in the previous video, there was a lot of speculation from our European audience on just exactly how Mizzou spent 4 times the amount of money to serve roughly the same student body population. And to be honest, a lot of you guys were actually quite right. You hit the nail on the head.
But others, not so much. And it's not really that you were misguided, it's that universities in the United States have some common myths, and we actually believe some of them as well.
So to keep things consistent, we're still going to take a look at the 2022-2023 University of Missouri expenditures. But we're gonna make this a little bit fun.
So play along with us on a fun game of fact or fiction to discover the 5 things Europeans get wrong,
but also right,
about universities in the United States.
So let's dive in. Number 1, fact or fiction? Mizzou has a higher budget because American professors make more money than German professors. Answer? Fact.
Sort of.
Ish. I feel like this should just come with a giant disclaimer on it because, to be totally honest, the salary differences between American and German professors, like, it's not as great as I think a lot of people presumed it was.
Yeah, certainly not 4 times as much. So it all boils down to the fundamental difference in how German professors versus American professors are paid.
So in many major universities in Germany, including the University of Freiburg, professors are actually considered civil servants, just like other government jobs, and they're actually bound to a state government-regulated W-3 salary schedule. They, of course, may also be eligible for performance bonuses, which can be negotiated when they draft their contract, but yeah, like they're government employees.
But on the other hand, at American public universities, like the University of Missouri, professor salaries come from a budget created by the respective colleges. But it is important to note that not all colleges are created equal. They have their differences. Different colleges have different budgets, different endowments, donations, so the more prestigious or famous the college might be, they usually will pay their professors a little bit more.
However, we can actually put this into perspective. Because the University of Missouri and the University of Freiburg are both public institutions, they're legally required to publish what they pay individual professors. It's totally public knowledge. So an assistant professor, sometimes called a junior professor in Germany, well, in Germany, according to that W-3 schedule, they will make 5,301 euros and 45 cents per month, which comes out to just over 63,500 euros per year. On the flip side of things, a Mizzou professor, let's just say in the College of Education, because I just happen to randomly pick that college, there is actually an assistant professor with a salary of $69,365.16 per year. So a little bit more, but they're in the same ballpark.
So moving on to the next tier, an associate professor here in Baden-Württemberg in Germany, they earn 80,108 euros and 40 cents per year. At Mizzou in the United States, in the education department, which is a random department that we picked, we found a professor who earns $91,233.28 per year.
And finally, the third tier, a full professor, in Baden-Württemberg, the base salary is 90,938 euros and 16 cents. But at Mizzou, in that same Department of Education, a full professor had a base salary of $128,042.06. And again, guys, just a disclaimer, I just happened to pick a random employee in a random department at Mizzou that was kind of somewhere in the middle. Of course, there's going to be variability from employee to employee, even within the same department. But again, I did my best to sort of try to show the middle ground here.
Yeah, I think if you were in the department that I was in college, engineering, you'll often find the professors probably earning a little bit more just because of the department that they're in.
Yeah, they have a higher budget.
Number 2 on our fact or fiction game. Mizzou has a higher budget because American universities have a lower student to faculty ratio. Answer, fiction.
So piggybacking off of the last section, I think it's really important that given that we do know that professors at Mizzou do make objectively more money than professors in Freiburg, what does that mean in the grand scheme of things in terms of budgeting and planning?
So in 2020, Mizzou's flagship campus in Columbia, Missouri had an operating budget of nearly $1.4 billion. As stated before, about 4 times the budget of the University of Freiburg. Now, a very general breakdown of how they spend their money looks like this. You see this graphic on the screen. The first row is salaries and wages, which total about $800 million. The next are the benefits, which are just shy of $234 million. And then comes supplies, services, and other operating expenses, which are about $260 million. And last but not least, the depreciation, which is about $82 million.
So to put this into other words, Mizzou actually spent just around 47% of their overall budget on salaries and wages. But the percentage of those salaries and wages that went to academic teaching staff versus just professional staff or support staff isn't all that clear. We do know that Mizzou employs 2,932 faculty members and a whopping 13,392 staff members.
In contrast, the University of Freiburg spent a lot more proportionally on what they term personnel expenses. It's broken up into state and third-party funds, but together it accounts for 72.7% of their total operating expenses.
Now, obviously, yes, adjusted for overall spending, the University of Freiburg did spend less overall. But this next figure, I don't know, I found this extremely curious. The University of Freiburg employs only 6,738 people. And given that the universities have remarkably similar student body populations, the fact that they employ 59% less people, again, with the same number of students, is pretty telling.
Now, the university tells us that 4,502 of these people are considered academic staff, and 2,142 are non-academic staff.
But if I'm gonna be 100% honest here, I don't think we're talking about the same metrics. I don't think University of Freiburg academic staff is the same thing as what the United States terms a faculty member, because based on my personal experience teaching there, I don't think the University of Freiburg has double the amount of teachers. So I did a little bit more digging for research on this, and I actually was able to kind of find some roundabout statistics that supported this. For example, Mizzou boasts a student-to-faculty ratio of 18:1. The University of Freiburg, on the other hand, doesn't actually publish this statistic, but I found a report by Reuters that places this at 33:1.
Now, we know what you're thinking. Didn't we just tell you that it was false, that this bloated number was due to a much different student-to-faculty ratio?
Yeah. You're right, we did say that, but honestly, when you look at the numbers of overall university spending, Mizzou doesn't spend more money and have a higher budget because they employ more professors. In fact, the biggest contributing factor to a much higher wages and salary number has to do with the slew of all of those other employees that Mizzou has on their payroll.
As more lower income first generation racial and ethnic minority students come to campus, they often need additional services to succeed in college. At a time when social justice movements continue to manifest on college campuses, forcing issues like sexual assault and race relations onto the radar to both students and administrators, new staff positions have also been created to meet student demands.
For example, structural changes at Mizzou following protests regarding racial relations on campus in the fall of 2015 exemplify the power of these student demands. In response, the university hired Kevin McDonald as its first Chief of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer in 2016. So coupled with meeting staffing requirements from both state and federal government mandates, addressing things like Title IX, financial aid, and diversity and inclusion, the appointment of individuals to staff of these divisions has prompted colleges across the nation to spend approximately $27 billion on compliance measures each year.
But compliance and inclusion positions are not solely responsible for the increase in staff. For this one, I think it's best that we move on to the next section.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying this video as we're dispelling a few myths about American universities as we explore the larger topic of higher education in this mini-series on our channel. In the coming weeks, we have an exciting update video planned that is sure to keep a few of you on the edge of your seat. Our ancestry and dual citizenship quest. From finding a long-lost interview that my ancestor gave in 1931, recounting his time as a personal bodyguard to Kaiser Wilhelm I, and a corporal in the highest division of the Prussian army, and Jonathan's time searching the Berlin archives for a long-lost citizenship document. But the research that goes into discovering more about our ancestry, well, to be completely honest, it's really pushed our German language skills. But thanks to the help of Lingoda, we've been able to push our German language learning into overdrive. Lingoda is an online language school that connects students across the world with native level teachers in live classes to learn a language. Currently, they offer classes to learn English, business English, Spanish, French, or German. But the best part, in my opinion, is that Lingoda hosts one-on-one or group learning sessions on Zoom for a range of abilities with native-level German speakers. So I can get feedback on my learning and corrections in real time from a real person.
Während.
Oh, während. Plus, classes are available 24/7 and offer a highly immersive and flexible learning experience. Plus, it's no secret that we share a house with a tiny toddler. And the flexibility of Lingoda's courses mean that we can take classes any time of the day, even if that means 5 a.m. when Jack is still asleep. It helps to have a good cup of coffee. So if you really want to jumpstart your language learning, you really need to check out the Lingoda Language Sprint. It's a 2-month intensive challenge where you complete either 15 or 30 classes per month. And if you take part in every lesson, you can receive 50 or 100% cash back. Thousands of students have already taken the challenge, including us. And we loved it because it not only increased our confidence in speaking, but it motivated us to be more consistent, and really, we saw results in just a few months. But because you guys watch and enjoy our videos, we have an exclusive offer that we can share with you. Use the code Ashton2022 or click the link down in the description of this video to get 20 euros or $25 off of the deposit. So if you want to learn to speak the language of your ancestors, or maybe you just want to challenge yourself to learn a new language, be sure to give Lingoda a try. Number 3, fact or fiction? Mizzou has a higher budget because American universities aren't safe. And the answer, honestly, we don't really know. And this section actually made its way onto this video because there was one specific comment on the last video where a viewer actually told us that she specifically sent her daughter to go to university in Germany because it was safer than universities in the United States. Again, specifically for women, and she was even speaking about like instances of sexual assault.
Unfortunately, we ran into a couple of issues to try and verify this claim. The first one is that American universities have their own police force.
Usually,
most universities will have that because it is a generally a big sprawling campus. And in Germany, for the most part, that is not the case. So going back to the point of this video, budgets, obviously this means the universities in the United States will, on average, spend more for salaries and wages for the police force to help patrol the campus.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the second issue that we also ran into in trying to verify this is because German universities don't typically have their own police force, they're just patrolled by the police of that city. They also don't typically separate out statistics on university crime versus crime from the surrounding city, which again makes sort of verifying this quite a bit more difficult.
Yeah, you've watched our last videos on campuses in Freiburg, for example, like the campus is literally in the city. In the United States, it is a very dedicated zone on where the campus is, so it is pretty easy to identify what's a campus crime, what is a non-campus crime. In Germany, or at least Freiburg, it's not so cut and dry.
So almost all four-year colleges with more than 2,500 students had their own law enforcement agency during the 2011-2012 academic year, according to a survey from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. And most of those officers can carry and use guns. In some cases, they actually even have jurisdiction outside of campus boundaries for traffic stops.
The first campus police department was established more than a century ago at Yale. But they didn't become widespread and fully professionalized until the 1960s, when colleges shaken by protest decided that it was both politically and tactically smarter to have their own police instead of relying on local forces. Although how much money MU spends on campus police isn't defined in their budget, we do know that MUPD has 24/7 operation with authorization for 50 commissioned police officers, 8 security officers, 13 communications officers, which are dispatchers, 2 administrative staff, and between 15 to 50, seasonally dependent, of course, part-time campus safety officers.
So again, guys, we can't really specifically say that German universities, the university itself, is any safer or less safe than American universities. But there are a few statistics that we can point to that do make some pretty strong inferences.
According to the National Center on Education Statistics, between 2009 and 2019, the overall number of report on-campus crimes decreased by 20%, from 34,100 to 27,300.
And when examined by the specific type of crime, the number of on-campus crimes reported in 2019 was, again, lower than the number reported in 2009 for 5 categories, including burglary, motor vehicle theft, aggravated assault, robbery, and arson. For forcible sex crimes, non-forcible sex offenses, murder, and negligent manslaughter, the number of on-campus crimes reported in 2019 was higher than 2009.
While these numbers might seem shocking to some, it is actually safe to say that generally speaking, campuses are actually safer than the surrounding towns that they're located in.
So in the end, although we know that statistically speaking, women feel less safe walking home alone at night than men across the globe, and women actually do statistically feel safer in Germany than in the United States.
And we also know that rape, adjusted for population, is 3 times more likely in the United States.
But how all of that relates to campus crimes specifically, it isn't all that clear.
So, number 4 of our fact or fiction game, Mizzou has a higher budget because, and I'm quoting the comments here, American universities waste their money on sports. The answer here, it's fact.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I 1000% thought this was a myth. I thought that the majority of American college sports, especially football, that these were profitable. I mean,
yeah, I thought they were making so much money off of college football.
Yes.
It's hard to imagine them not making tons of money on college football, considering they don't even pay the players.
Well, this is true. And to be fair, they do make a lot of money, but whether or not it actually gets them out of the red and into the black is actually highly contentious. And guys, this was probably one of the things that I found the most shocking that really changed my perspective.
Yeah, for sure. At the more than 1,100 schools across all 3 NCAA divisions, roughly $18.1 billion was spent on athletics in the year 2018.
But, and this is the big but, the total revenue generated was only $10.3 billion, leaving nearly $8 billion that had to be subsidized by other sources. But here's the real kicker.
Pun intended.
Punt intended. Aha!
We're here all night, folks.
We're here all night. Okay, but in all seriousness, I really think this is actually quite shocking. Schools are not legally required to disclose how much of their tuition revenue goes towards athletics, leaving students in the dark about how much they're being charged and where exactly that money is going.
But state funding is often restricted for educational use. So 4 out of 5 of the 230 D1 public universities charge students a fee to finance sports teams, with some charging in excess of $2,000 annually. Objectively, it does increase the cost.
The Mizzou Athletics Department has reported a deficit for the past 5 years in a row, even not accounting for the pandemic, which of course affected sports a lot by reducing capacity at games, lowering ticket sales, canceling college tournaments, and of course there was that bailout from the SEC. There's been a lot of turmoil that has actually cost Mizzou dearly.
Notably, displeased with the football team's performance, Mizzou chose to buy out the former football coach Barry Odom's contract for a reported $2.85 million in 2019.
And in the end, Mizzou is actually ranked as one of the top 40 universities when it comes to college sports spending and expenses.
All that being said, it is actually difficult for us as Americans to think of an American university without college sports.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is really funny to say after now living in Germany for so long. But like, it's pretty clear that college sports in the United States are held almost to the same level as the professional sports, like college football.
Oh yeah.
Like, almost seems as popular as NFL.
I don't know, like there's just sort of a sense of camaraderie, and especially with some universities, you have like generations of families that go to that same university.
This is important to actually discuss now, the cost associated with the football teams and the American football teams and the sports, because people will often decide what university to go to simply because of the sporting teams.
And the culture.
And the culture. That's one of the reasons why they are competing with each other, because they want to grab more students in, and this is one way they can do it, which is vastly different than Europe. But that's the culture.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but don't get me wrong, like if I'm going to share my personal opinion here, I do sort of feel like sometimes all of this spending on sports has gotten a bit out of hand. The highest paid employee at public universities in 40 of the 50 states, including Pennsylvania, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and Georgia, is a coach.
At the University of Texas at Austin, the current football head coach makes nearly 36 times more than a professor.
Number 5, fact or fiction? Mizzou has a higher budget because American universities are like resorts. And in an answer that shocked me, this is actually mostly fiction.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, The Thrillist came out with an article in 2014 titled 10 College Amenities So Insane You'll Want to Go Back to School. And their title picture, they used none other than our alma mater, Mizzou, with a picture of the third pool, yes, the third student pool, because there's also an Olympic-sized lap pool and a state-of-the-art diving pool, a second indoor pool that motivated Sports Illustrated to name Mizzou's rec center the best in the country. The rec center has a 293,000 square foot gym that cost $50 million to build, and offers students a palm tree shaded lazy river with a waterfall, over 100 cardio machines, and the resort quality Tiger Grotto, complete with whirlpool, sauna, and hot tub. Oh yeah, and there's a full service spa. But truthfully, those fancy amenities are not even close to being the bulk of what Mizzou spends on facilities in their budget.
In 2019, Mizzou published a report titled Facilities Repair, Replacement, and Renovation and 10-Year Facilities Need Forecast. And in it, they report that in fiscal year 2019, the university spent $115 million on facilities needs. Of that $115 million, $56.7 million was spent on education and general facilities which support the academic and research mission of the university.
The other half of those expenses, which aren't for education and general facilities, largely went to replacing the Hearns chiller plant, overhauling gas turbines, and replacing CHP controls at the Mizzou power plant.
Yes, Mizzou actually operates its own power plant. I worked there as an engineering student, fun fact.
I mean, yeah, like Mizzou's campus, it's really, really nice. Don't get me wrong. It's beautiful. The buildings are all actually pretty new. And when you walk around campus, it really is. It's a state botanical garden. So it's just a beautiful place to spend some time. But to circle back to the question at the very beginning, which is to say that like Mizzou has this huge inflated budget because it's like a resort, it's kind of categorically false to say that, because in the grand scheme of things, the amount that they actually spend on those like resort-like extra amenities is a really small piece of the budget pie. In fact, 50% of the entire facilities budget just goes to supporting academics and research. And the other half, like we just explained, was really gobbled up by a heck of a lot of infrastructure investments.
But I think it's also important to point back to the topic we're discussing, like a resort. That part is actually true.
Yeah,
it is like a resort. It has everything that you would need. It kind of feels like you're on vacation when you're not in the library grinding away until the wee hours of the morning to take that 8 a.m. exam that you have.
Okay, so, this has been a ton of fun. This whole series on university life. I don't know, it's actually been kind of fun even this evening just to sort of reminisce back on our time at Mizzou, and it really does bring up a lot of fond memories.
Yeah, for sure. I know for me, like, it was the best time of my life before I met her and got married, of course. But yeah, the time I had in the university was by far just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and I think for me too, it's really hard to sort of capture like what it was. Like, I don't know if I could just say it was like one thing that made the college experience for me. It was all of it.
It was the culture. It was everything. It was everything that came with being at a university. Of course, getting the education, but meeting the friends and just spending the time with everybody and really just trying to grow and figure out who you are after you're done with high school and then try to anticipate where you're gonna go with your career. Like, it was a very nice transition in our lives. All right, so this wraps up our series on the differences between universities in the United States and in Germany for now.
For now.
But we wanted to ask you to add a comment. Which one of these surprised you the most?
Yeah, and I think to piggyback on that as well, were there any of these expenses that you actually really liked and would like to see implemented at your alma mater? Yeah, be sure to let us know down in the comment section below.
All right, so that wraps up our video today. If you liked what you saw today, be sure to hit that thumbs up button.
And for more content from the Black Forest family, hit that subscribe button.
So until next time, ciao.
Tschüss.
Contract for reported $2.85 billion that would have been a big one.
Yeah.
Should have been a football coach. Compliance and inclusion positions, but compliance and incline.
For example, structural changes at the University of Missouri following protests regarding race or... Here's your beer, honey. Example, structural changes at Mizzou in the fall of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer in 2016.